August 26, 2025, Washington, D.C. The nation's capital stands once again at the center of a fierce political storm. On this day, President Donald Trump took the podium with a message that was both blunt and incendiary. He will seek the death penalty for murders committed in the U.S. Capitol. The announcement, delivered with deliberate repetition and trademark force, has already sent shockwaves across the country and beyond. Anybody murders somebody in the Capitol, capital punishment, capital punishment, Trump declared in his unmistakable style. If somebody kills somebody in the capital, Washington, D.C., we're going to be seeking the death penalty. And that's a very strong preventative. His phrasing, while rough at the edges, was unmistakable in intent. He wants the harshest possible penalty for the gravest crime, right in the symbolic heart of the United States. The context is important. For months, Washington has been grappling with a rise in violent crime, from deadly shootings on city streets to unsettling attacks in neighborhoods not far from the White House. The fear of lawlessness has seeped into daily life. Though overall numbers are far below the dark days of the 1990s, the trend line has been heading upward, and it has become a political flashpoint. Local leaders call for community investment, better policing, and social reform. Trump, true to form, has chosen a different path, a policy of fearsome deterrence. The death penalty in America has always been contested ground. Nearly half of US states have abolished it or halted its use, citing morale, legal and financial concerns. Wrongful convictions, racial disparities, and the staggering costs of capital cases have all contributed to a steady national retreat. Yet for Trump, the punishment remains not just valid, but essential. Time and again, he has framed it as the only tool strong enough to dissuade would-be offenders. In his worldview, crime is a matter of strength versus weakness, and only the most severe sanction can send the right signal. Washington, however, is no ordinary jurisdiction. The District of Columbia does not currently allow capital punishment. It abolished the practice more than 4 decades ago, reflecting changing public attitudes and local governance that sought to distinguish itself from the harsher measures embraced elsewhere. To reintroduce executions in D.C. would mean tearing up established law and forcing the city into alignment with a federal mandate. The president's declaration, therefore, is not just a matter of criminal justice. It is a direct challenge to the balance of power between the local government, Congress, and the federal executive. Supporters of the president are likely to welcome the move. They see in his words a leader unafraid to speak plainly and act decisively. To them, the message is overdue. Violent criminals deserve no leniency, and the capital of the United States must be a model of order and justice. Trump's line, capital punishment for the capital, is already a political slogan in the making, a phrase that blends policy with theatre and demands attention. But the opposition is just as fierce. Civil rights groups, constitutional scholars, and anti-death penalty advocates point out that the measure would not only reverse decades of legal precedent, but also invite years of litigation. They argue that executions do not deter crime, that they disproportionately affect minority communities, and that they carry an unacceptable risk of irreversible error. For them, Trump's announcement is not a path to safety, but a dangerous return to failed strategies of the past. The symbolism of Washington matters deeply. This is not just any city. It is the seat of American government, the place where Congress debates, where the Supreme Court interprets, and where the president governs. To impose the death penalty here is to declare that the city representing American democracy itself must be governed by the harshest possible interpretation of justice. To allies abroad, it risks reinforcing perceptions that the United States is out of step with global norms. To adversaries, it offers propaganda, evidence, they will say, that America is clinging to punitive practices long abandoned by other democracies. Yet Trump thrives in controversy. He knows that tough-on-crime rhetoric rallies his base, especially when paired with bold, uncompromising promises. His delivery, halting, repetitive but emphatic, was crafted to dominate headlines and fuel the national conversation. Within hours, his words spread across television broadcasts, social media feeds, and political talk shows. Supporters hailed it as decisive leadership. Critics denounced it as authoritarian grandstanding. Either way, the mission was accomplished. The issue of crime and punishment was thrust back into the spotlight, with Trump at the center. The practical challenges ahead are immense. Implementing capital punishment in Washington would require more than a presidential declaration. Congress would have to engage. Courts would have to rule. The district's own leaders, long opposed to the death penalty, would resist. And even if the machinery of law could be shifted, the process of carrying out executions would face the same logistical, legal and ethical hurdles that plague the death penalty nationwide. But in politics, sometimes the reality of implementation is secondary to the power of the message. By vowing to bring back executions for murders in the capital, Trump has positioned himself as the ultimate law and order figure, willing to go further than his predecessors and determined to frame safety as a matter of national pride. To victims' families in Washington, the announcement may bring a measure of hope that justice will be served more harshly than ever before. To activists on the ground, it will seem like a distraction from the deeper work of addressing poverty, inequality and systemic injustice, the roots of the violence that plague the city. To politicians, it will be yet another dividing line in a country already fractured by ideology, identity and the struggle over what justice should mean in the 21st century. Ultimately, the phrase that lingered in the air as Trump left the podium captured the essence of the day: capital punishment for the capital. For some, it was a promise of safety restored. For others, it was a chilling reminder of the power wielded by one man at a microphone. What happens next will depend on lawmakers, judges and voters. But today's announcement has ensured that the debate over the death penalty, once thought to be fading from national prominence, has returned to the very center of American politics, with Washington itself as the stage.
Anybody murders something in the Capitol, capital punishment, capital punishment. If somebody kills somebody in the Capitol, Washington, D.C., we're going to be seeking the death penalty. And that's a very strong preventative.